guy who said after the 2021 season, when he was the starter and Trey Lance was the backup, I wouldn't wish that experience on anyone. So it has been a stressful time in San Francisco, undermining the starter with the arrival of Trey Lance. And now Trey Lance, Chris, gets thrown overboard 2 years into his career. Brock Purdy's the starter. Sam Darnold the QB2. I said last week, and I think I said this while they had not yet traded him, why not just make him QB2 and keep him? $6.3 million over the next 2 years. You never know when you're going to need him. Just tell him he's QB2. If that's what it takes to keep him, okay, fine, you're QB2, Darnold's QB3, and we just go forward. I really do think at the end of the day, and the fact that they gladly handed him off to the Cowboys for a fourth-round pick, that underscores the fact that Kyle had seen enough. He was ready to move on. He had made the assessment. This just is never going to work. There's no point continuing it.
Well, yeah, and I think, too, it starts to become a distraction for the football team, too. And I think he wanted to, do right by Trey Lance. I think, and Kyle, and I know this, and he was honest and kind of saying this last week, I do believe he wanted to do right by him. I think he would have gone either way in this situation. But then, yeah, when you get offered a fourth-round pick, which is more than what I thought he was going to get offered, right? Then, yeah, you do that. And like we said last segment, they got Brandon Allen, who they were comfortable with. Okay, let's make him the 3. We're good. We don't have to talk about Trey Lance, Sam Darnold every week and deal with that whole conversation and even have that in the locker room. So I think that, it was a lot of positives there for San Francisco. It's positive for Trey Lance. Get him a fresh start, a fresh look. And now we can kind of discuss what Dallas really means by getting Trey Lance in Dallas. That's the other part of this equation here.
Well, here's Trey Lance from yesterday on, before we get to the Dallas side of it, his views on how things came to an end after only 2 seasons with the 49ers.
It's not how I expected it to go. It's not how I think, a lot of people expected it to go. But, I believe that everything happens for a reason. Kind of really trying to move on. Yeah, it definitely took some time. That conversation obviously, wasn't something I wanted to hear, but that's the reality of the situation. And nothing but respect and gratitude for everyone there and, coaching staff, locker room, obviously athletic training staff, everyone I spent a ton of time with these last few years. But yeah, obviously, it was tough. But for me, it was, kind of trying to figure out, what's next and what's going to happen in the future. I really tried to not, expect anything one way or another. But I can say that when I heard Cowboys, I had a big smile on my face. I was very excited to be here.
Jarring to see him in a Cowboys hat, even though he only played in 4 regular season games for the 49ers. It just takes some getting used to. And, Chris, the comment was made by Kyle last week after the trade that Trey Lance wanted to go somewhere where he had a chance to be the number 2. I still don't understand how he's going to be the number 2 in Dallas.
No.
Cooper Rush there.
Right.
How's he going to? Cooper Rush has far more experience. Far more experience.
Yeah.
More than twice the number of games, more than twice the number of regular season passes thrown. Cooper Rush is number 2, and he's been there. Trey Lance is the guy who's just showing up. So, and remember last week we said, why would he want to go from being number 3 in San Francisco to number 3 somewhere else where he doesn't know anybody and he's got to start from scratch and everything's different? And why do you want to put yourself through that? Just ride it out this year. I don't know why he thinks he's going to be number 2 in Dallas.
I don't
know what they told him to make him think he's going to be number 2. And I don't know why he's so happy about it, because I frankly think, and I have a feeling we're going to get to this, I think he's a pawn in a bigger drama in Dallas right now.
Well, yeah, I think that we are going to get to that. I'm with you from the from the pure football standpoint. I go, San Francisco made more sense, right? But that's easy for me to say, right? And Trey Lance has been through a lot. As he said there, it hurt. He didn't want to hear that. He had to take a break. He's a competitor. The pressure has been on him more than just about anybody in football in San Francisco. So I understand him wanting to get out. But, yeah, from a pure football standpoint, I think, the 49ers did make sense. But at the same time, he wants a fresh vibe, a fresh look, and just to move on with his career. And things got a little crazy there in San Francisco. So I get that. Now, with the Dallas situation, yeah, I mean, you're right, Mike. There's no way he's beating out Cooper Rush anytime soon. That's for sure. I mean, like we just discussed with the Patriots and that backup quarterback situation, he's got to learn the offense. There will be some similarities as far as language and stuff like that, but not a ton. I mean, so there's a lot to learn here. The big question is not why Trey Lance would do it. I think we've unpacked that. The big question is, yes, why does Dallas do it? And that's where I think we got some theories, or we can connect some dots to what makes sense here from the Cowboys standpoint and why they would, make a trade for Trey Lance.
$59.455 million is why the Cowboys did it, I believe. That's Dak Prescott's cap number next year. There had been an expectation, a belief, an aspiration that the Cowboys were going to extend Dak Prescott's contract during this offseason, knocking down next year's massive cap number. This year it's simply 26.8, but next year it's 59.455. And how do you get that to change? You get the player to agree to a new contract that reduces his cap number. Without his agreement, they're stuck with 59.455. Good luck signing Micah Parsons to a long-term extension that pays him more than any defensive player in NFL history when your quarterback is on the books for 59.455. So they need him to agree to something that works for them. And he's got the leverage to say, sorry, I want to be the highest paid player. I want another great contract. I want something equivalent to my 4 years, $160 million that you had to rip up after 3 years because the cap number was too huge. I'm going to drive a hard bargain because you drove a hard bargain with me. You didn't give me a contract after my first 3 years. You didn't give me a contract after my fourth year. You made me play 5 years, and then you gave me my long-term contract, and I got you over a barrel again, and I'm going to take full advantage of it. They need to have a plan B if Dak Prescott does now what he did in 2021, which was drive a bargain so hard, so aggressive that the Cowboys, I think, were shocked by it. But they had no other choice. They're in that spot again. So they at least have to have a plausible plan B to Dak Prescott. If Dak Prescott shows up and says, guys, happy to redo my deal. I want $55 million a year in new money.
There's a lot to unpack here, right? So there's two things that jump out here. One, yeah, obviously they're making the trade to, hopefully strike gold in the quarterback asset world, right? Trey Lance, they liked him coming out in the draft. He does have some physical tools that are impressive. We know his arm is strong, right? It's not a smooth delivery like we've talked about. It's a lot of hard wobblers. He doesn't throw an easy catchable football. He's not as fast as everybody thought he was coming out of school. We don't see him run and do crazy stuff like that. But they're hoping they can make him into something. So there's two things that come to mind here for me as far as football is concerned. All right, like you said it. He's not going to beat Cooper Rush out right now. But maybe after 2.5 months, he'll know the offense is close to Cooper Rush. And he does have, like we said, I think more top-end talent. So maybe they're looking at it, hey, Dak Prescott, he has been banged up a little bit over the last few years. If he were to get hurt in week 14, Trey Lance, his top-end ability, we got a Super Bowl team. We might be able to run our offense more with a guy like that than Cooper Rush, who we're going to run the ball, take a calculated throw down the field, run the ball, run. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. The second thing is what you're talking about, right? Is, make him into something and then have the pressure on Dak Prescott when it comes contract time. But I still think that's far-fetched. That's where I look at it and go, a 4th-round pick for a guy who hasn't played in 3 years, and now he's most likely not going to play again this year, and then you think in the offseason and everything, he's going to be able to put enough pressure on Dak Prescott and the Cowboys to go, wait, he's breathing down my neck here. I better rethink my I just don't envision that. I don't know, am I crazy? But I don't see how that happens either. So I'm a little confused by the trade or what signal they're sending out by the whole thing.
I agree with you, Chris. I think it was a desperation move. And you said they liked him in the draft. They reportedly had a second-round grade on him. And I can't really do the mental gymnastics to go from second-round grade in 2021 to picking up the back end of his fully guaranteed contract with no relief from the 49ers. That's what I was hearing on Friday afternoon. Hey, if the 49ers want to trade this guy and they're trying their damnedest to trade him, they may have to pay some of this money next year. $950,000 was left this year. The bulk of it, $5.3 next year. They may have to pay some of it, and they get the Cowboys to pay it all, and they get the Cowboys to give up a 4. You know, it was one of those situations where they were trying to keep a straight face when they were talking about it afterward because they never expected to get a 4.
I don't think they
Trey
did.
Lance.
I don't think they did. And
so
this is what. Do you think anybody else got involved in the conversation? Right? Do you think?
I saw the Bills. I saw the Bills were involved. I can't remember who reported that, but somebody said the Bills were involved.
Yeah,
but it wasn't close.
Yeah,
Cowboys were far and away the closest.
Yeah, it's what it seems like. And again,
or best. Excuse me.
I saw the Bills. I think there was some thoughts in league circles that Minnesota, with their GM coming from San Francisco, that there was some liking there, But yeah, I'll be interested as time goes and when I hear more about it, who was really involved in this conversation and what made the Cowboys just go all in on this. Because I like you, I think I'm shocked that they got a 4th rounder and didn't have to pay the money of Trey Lance.
I think the fact that the Cowboys went all in and moved so quickly shows how concerned they are about this $59.455 million cap number, and they have no control over that situation. They put themselves in this mess. This goes back to something that I said earlier this week when we were talking about it, Chris. Always pay your guy. When you know he's your guy, pay him now. Don't wait. The longer you wait, the more of a mess you make for yourself. The Cowboys made a mess for themselves in 2021. With the contract they had to give Dak, and now they've got a mess now, and it's weighing on them. And I think they just had this thing fall into their lap out of the sky, and decided we have to go get this guy because we currently have no leverage. We have no plan B. We have nothing. Cooper Rush is all we have as the alternative, and the leverage and the way to get Dak Prescott to be more reasonable next year. It's still a mess.
Yeah.
It's not like they can trade him. He's got a no trade clause.
Right.
They could ask him to waive it. They could find another spot for him, and they could reduce the cap number that way. But he has them. He has them. He is in a position where they have to do whatever he wants, and I'm sure they hate that. And I think this Lance move, and the reason that I believe it, when Jerry Jones was asked about it on Saturday night, he said that Dak's contract never even crossed his mind in this analysis. And my reaction to that is, Chris, he's either completely incompetent or he's not telling the truth.
Well, of course not.
How could it not at least cross
He's an oil
your mind?
salesman,
How
okay?
could it not cross your mind?
Come on.
I mean, come on. Come on. This is exactly why they're doing it. They don't know what they're going to do next year, but we need to have somebody that we can plausibly make Dak think is our long-term alternative. And if you want to continue to be the Cowboys starting quarterback, you need to work with us.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's that simple.
Yeah. I hear you there. I think it is probably that simple too. I don't know if it works or it makes sense to go this route with Trey Lance, but yeah, it's I guess worth a shot in the dark for that. I do. And again, I think there's a wanting of more from Dak Prescott and his play for what they've paid him and all that. Right? Like you said, hey, when he knows your guy, you want to pay him, right? They paid him, and now, like you're talking about, next year he's going to be the highest paid quarterback in football. And, the way it looked last year and how we've seen him, perform in some big moments the last few years, they can't be totally happy with Dak Prescott. He's being paid like he's one of the top quarterbacks in football, and they're not getting top quarterback in football type of performance back. And I think that, added to all that you're saying, is really eating away at them.
That's a point that I made earlier this week, and it's no disrespect intended toward Dak. I think Dak is still a very good quarterback. The problem is, remember when Russell Wilson started to creep down your top 40 rankings? It wasn't because he'd gotten worse. There were just too many younger guys that were better. And I think that's what Dak has fallen victim to. And I laid out the names the other day in a post at PFT. But there are 7 or 8 guys clearly better than him. He's in that cut of Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins.
Exactly.
like where are they between
9 and 12 or 13. Exactly right. That's exactly right. That's how I see it. And I would sit here last year and go, and as you saw in my quarterback rankings, Kirk Cousins, he played better football than Dak Prescott. That's not even close last year. It's not. And it was not a great year. And let alone, hey, the Week 18 performance against Washington wasn't good. The 49ers game, it's there to be had. They're looking at it. Jerry Jones going, I'm paying you $45 million plus. Our defense is holding down the fort against the 49ers. Man, bad pick right before half. Man, bad pick. What was that in the fourth quarter, right? And that's, I think, eating away at them that way. Plus, they probably feel like, like you kind of said, that he won that first negotiation battle anyways, and that drives them crazy because they are oil salesmen, like we said. So, this has got, I think, some meat on it, and I'm interested to see where the future goes with this one.
One of the things that Jones said when Zach Martin was holding out is we need to save our money for the Micah Parsons contract. Well, they've just thrown away another $6.3 million over the next 2 years on a quarterback who presumably isn't going to play, which just makes it harder to have the money available to extend Micah Parsons. That's the problem. And let me pose this question to you before we move on.
Yeah.
If you're the Cowboys, who would you rather have beyond this season, Dak Prescott or Micah Parsons?
Micah Parsons. I don't say that easily because the quarterback, again, like we talk about, when you got a guy around the top 10, it's like we always say, it's like, you want something better, but, like Mahomes and Allen and Burrow don't grow on trees. So, we want something better, but Micah Parsons is arguably the best defensive player in football, and he's just hitting the prime of his career here. So, I would say Micah Parsons. I don't say that easily, but I would give the edge there for sure, yeah.
I'm with you, and this is another analytics exercise as it relates to roster construction. I have a better chance of finding another fringe top 10 quarterback than I do another best defensive player in football. And if I have to pay this fringe top 10 quarterback more than any other quarterback's making in new money average, all the more reason to go try to find a different top 10 fringe quarterback and focus my resources on keeping the guy that is on track to become the new perennial defensive player of the year candidate and maybe under the right circumstances an MVP candidate. That's how good he is. So, they're trying to work this out, and I just think they freaked out. They saw an opportunity and they thought it through and they just did it. And you know what else, Chris? They didn't tell Dak Prescott they were doing it. They didn't even tell Mike McCarthy they were doing it. They just went and did it.
Yeah, now, Mike McCarthy, that's one where I go, I don't get that. Why don't we tell him? Now, I know a lot of people have made a lot of noise about, they should have included Dak Prescott in this conversation. Again, this is the football business. We've gotten a little too loose, I think, just because of the Tom Brady's and the Peyton Mannings of the world, or even Aaron Rodgers. But they are who they are. They're in a different stratosphere where we think, the quarterback should be involved in all big decisions. And that's just not the way it works. That's not the way it works. I'm sorry. And we know, the NFL has that military-ish background, chain of command, whatever. So that's not the way it's going to go down. Again, if New England doesn't tell Tom Brady they're drafting Jimmy Garoppolo, then you don't got to tell any quarterbacks jack diddly crap. That's what I would say. All right? So people are off base with that, in my opinion. Okay? And also, what I also want to say, and I know we've said, this could mean that, but at the same time, I want to go, what do they got to tell Dak Prescott anyways? Hey, we're trading for the guy that was a borderline fourth guy on the depth chart in San Francisco, and we're bringing in a third stringer here, right? Dak Prescott, if he's the man and he is who I think he is, he should go, I don't give a damn who you bring in here. I'm the man. I'm the sheriff in town. So I don't think that matters. Now, McCarthy, he deserves to be talked to a little bit in that conversation.
Well, and let me give you the counter.
Yeah, okay.
Because
cool.
this is a topic that's come up from time to time, whether it's Aaron Rodgers, whether it's Russell Wilson, whether it's whoever. If you want the quarterback to be de facto coach on the field, if you want the quarterback to be the liaison to the locker room that is taking the messages from the coaching staff to the players, if you want him to be quasi-member of management, there are certain courtesies that I think the quarterback deserves. This was why Aaron Rodgers was so disenchanted with the front office in Green Bay. Their attitude toward him when issues of personnel management came up, or you just work here. Well, I do more than just work here. I am your emissary to the rank and file. And all we're saying is, with Prescott and Trey Lance, just give him a heads up. Hey, Dak, we know you really like Will Grier. That's something Dak said in the aftermath.
Yeah, I know.
I love Will Grier. We're going to kind of shake things up in the quarterback room a couple weeks before week 1. Just want you to know what's coming. We're going to bring in Trey Lance. We think this is a good opportunity to improve the quarterback room, and we're going to have to let Will Grier go. We just want you to know that since it's going to affect you. And that's the thing. It affects him. He's your leader of the team, highest paid player, at least for now. And this is something that does affect him. Even if he stays on the field for every snap all year long, this affects his life. This affects his orbit. This affects his existence at work. Why don't you just tell him? How hard is it to tell him before you do it? That's what I look at and say, it seems a little disrespectful to not tell him.
I get you there. Again, I'd echo to go, this should not affect Dak Prescott. He should not be preparing for the Giants going, oh, damn, Trey Lance is here now. It shouldn't. Okay, the other angle I'll throw there, because we see this happen too. Okay, they tell Dak Prescott a few days before. Now he tells a guy in the locker room. He tells a guy and an agent. All of a sudden the 49ers know. The Cowboys are kind of hot on him. That's just going to drive up the price and everything there. So I understand them kind of keeping that close to the vest in this type of conversation. At least that would be my 2 cents. And just to push back a little on what you said, let's not put Dak Prescott in Aaron Rodgers category quite yet. I know you're not, but I'm just, to me, that's for the special quarterbacks. Mahomes should get talked to. He's got enough, pellets on the horse or the damn wall. What are we talking about? Brady's, the Mannings, the legends of the sport. That's who you talk to. I don't think everybody should get I want to be a part of every decision and organizational thought process at the quarterback position.
And that brings us back to the original point. The Cowboys don't want to pay him in that same way. That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
He holds leverage over them contractually that puts him in a position where he can be paid as if he is one of the greats of the game. And by not telling him in advance, the message to them, from them to him, is we don't view you that way. So you better not view yourself that way when it's time to redo this contract. So I think we finally figured out.
I think they've been sending that signal, right? Like even with the Instagram post last year at the end of the game, after the you talk to people. I think you talk about people. I don't think it's like, oh man, he's our guy forever here. No, they want more from him. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I think they've kind of put those signals out there.
At some point, they've got to get off the Dak Prescott roller coaster, because they have themselves in a spot where they keep paying market level contract unless he decides on his own. I cannot in good conscience force a market level contract. I'm going to be self-aware as to where I fit in the broader quarterback hierarchy, and I'm not going to leverage this situation into $55 million a year or whatever the top number is after this season. They're hoping that I think he does that on his own, but he's got no reason to do it. And at some point they have to ask themselves, why are we paying this much money to a guy who isn't performing at the level that money would suggest? We have to stop the ride. We have to move on to somebody else. And the best they can muster at this point is Trey Lance. So they're going from the most exciting ride in the amusement park to the teacups, from Dak Prescott to Trey Lance, but they hope they can make that teacup ride pretty damn exciting, I don't know, set the teacups on fire or something.
No,
I don't
you
know.
just got to
They're
spin
hoping
that damn thing.
they're hoping
Really,
that
you got to
becomes
go
a better
crazy.
ride.
You just got to really
They're
spin it
hoping
hard.
that becomes a better ride for them. But that's all they got. That's all they got. That's all they got. And that's why ultimately I think they did it. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.